You think you know Frankenstein, right? The big, hulking green monster, bolts in his neck, zapped into life on a stormy night? But what if I told you the real story? The story of how that monster was born is even more shocking, more tragic, and way more brilliant than the fiction itself. Okay, let's get into it. See, the mind behind this horror icon wasn't some mad scientist in a castle. It was a 19-year-old girl named Mary Shelley. So that's the real mystery we're going to unpack here. How on earth did this young woman tap into an age of revolution and a life of just intense personal tragedy to write a novel so radical it literally invented a genre that would shape our future? So let's just get the picture straight. On one side, you've got the pop culture version we all know, this lumbering, grunting brute. But on the other side, you have its creator, a fiercely intelligent teenager, the daughter of two of the most radical thinkers of her time, and a young woman who was haunted by just unimaginable loss. The question is, how do we get from her story to his? Well, our story has to start with Mary. As she later said herself, it wasn't really a surprise she became a writer, being the daughter of two persons of distinguished literary celebrity. But nobody, and I mean least of all Mary herself, could have possibly predicted the hideous idea she was about to unleash on the world. Now, the first big clue in this whole mystery is the world Mary was born into. This wasn't just any old time in history. It was an age of explosive revolution. People were totally fired up by what they called the spirit of the age, this radical belief that society, science, even humanity itself could be completely reinvented from the ground up. And her parents? Oh, they were standing right at the epicenter of this whole earthquake. Her mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, wrote the foundational text of modern feminism. Her father, William Godwin, was a famous anarchist philosopher. For them and their circle, this wasn't just talk. They truly believed in the regeneration of the human race. The idea of creating a new, better kind of human wasn't just in books. It was in the very air she was breathing. Okay, so let's jump to the main event. It's 1816, the infamous year without a summer. A teenage Mary is hanging out at a villa on Lake Geneva with her partner, the poet Percy Shelley, and, only the biggest celebrity of the age, Lord Byron. They're trapped indoors by volcanic ash and these relentless storms, so they have to figure out a way to entertain themselves. And so, Lord Byron throws down a challenge. Now, just think about this for a second. You have some of the greatest literary talents of the century, all cooped up in one room, trying to scare the living daylights out of each other. The creative pressure must have been just immense, especially for the youngest person in the room. For days, Mary had nothing, a total blank. Then, one night, she stayed up late, just silently listening as Byron and Shelley got into this super intense debate about the latest scientific theories. They were talking about the nature and principle of life, wondering if you could actually jolt a corpse back to life with electricity. And that conversation, that was the lightning strike she needed. That night, Mary was hit by what she called a waking dream. She saw it all with this terrifying clarity, the pale student, the monstrous thing he'd created, the horror of life stirring where it just shouldn't be. The image was so complete, so powerful, she knew right away, I have found it. It's amazing, really, how one late-night chat can spark a world-changing idea. And here's the kicker. Of all those literary heavyweights, Byron, Shelley, their Dr. Polidori, only one person actually finished the challenge, the 19-year-old girl. And she didn't just finish it. She took that terrifying little story and turned it into one of the most influential novels ever written. But this book didn't just come from intellectual debates and spooky stories. No. To really understand the dark heart of Frankenstein, you have to go deeper, into the pain of Mary's own life. The novel's obsession with creation, birth, and abandonment was deeply, tragically personal. It's really no wonder she called her novel her hideous progeny. The critic Ellen Moores put it perfectly. She argued that Frankenstein is basically a woman's myth-making on the subject of birth. In a time when giving birth was incredibly dangerous, the novel became this powerful story about a man who bypasses women altogether to create life, only to discover the absolute horror of what he's done. And this is where the story becomes almost unbearably personal. Just look at these parallels. Victor Frankenstein is instantly horrified by his quote-unquote child and just abandons it. Well, Mary's own mother had died just days after giving birth to her. Mary herself had just recently lost her first child, a premature baby girl. Victor's absolute disgust and rejection of his own creation, it was a mirror of her own deep-seated trauma. That feeling of overwhelming loss and isolation, it bleeds directly into the novel's most heartbreaking character, the creature. The creature's desperate, agonizing loneliness is a direct reflection of Mary's own. After outliving her husband, her friends, and 3 of her 4 children, she wrote in her journal that she felt totally alone, like the last relic of a beloved race. So here's the crucial point. Frankenstein came out of a perfect storm. It was this fusion of the revolutionary ideas from her parents, the scientific speculation of her time, and the raw, devastating pain of her own life. And by weaving all those threads together, she created something the world had never, ever seen before. She basically invented a whole new literary recipe. You take one part, cutting-edge science, add a heavy dose of social commentary, and you blend it with these huge questions about what it means to be human. And what do you get? What we now call science fiction. It was the first novel to really seriously ask what happens when our technological ambition gets way ahead of our moral wisdom.
And that is exactly why we're still reading it today. The book's real power isn't in the monster. It's in the questions it forces us to ask. Questions about our responsibility to the things we create, whether that's AI, a new technology, or even our own kids. As Mary's husband, Percy, put it, the book's central moral is tragically simple. Treat a person ill, and he will become wicked.
You can just hear that agony in the creature's own voice, right? As he cries out to the man who made him and then just left him to suffer all alone. He never asked to be created. His rage is born directly from the pain of being abandoned by the one person who was supposed to care for him. This is the tragic, beating heart of the story.
In the end, Mary Shelley doesn't give us any easy answers. The book just slams shut, but the question hangs in the air, and it's been echoing for over 200 years. Is the monster the creature made of stitched-together corpses who only ever wanted a little bit of compassion? Or is it the brilliant, ambitious creator who, in his pride and his fear, refused to love him? Who is the real monster?